I want to start tonight with a couple phrases that you've probably heard 1,000 times. A phrase that gets stamped on curricula, printed into mandates, and used to sell programs to your district. I'm talking about research based and evidence based, or the science of learning. Here's what I need you to sit with. Some of the most developmentally harmful practices being forced into early childhood classrooms right now are being sold to you under those exact words. Scripted lessons for 3-year-olds, 45 minutes of sitting still, standardized assessments for children who are barely out of diapers, the elimination of free play. All of it is justified in the name of research. But here's the truth this value rests on. We know more about how young children develop than at any point in human history. The research is clear, the science is clear, and what the science actually says is the opposite of what is being mandated in the name of early childhood education. So the question is not whether we have the research, we have it. The question is, why isn't what we know driving what we do? My fourth professional early childhood education and care value is aligning early childhood practices and policies with research that supports healthy child development. And tonight, I want you to embrace this value as resistance. Resist the weaponizing of evidence to justify developmentally inappropriate practice. Resist the learning loss panic that pushes academic rigor onto 4-year-olds. Resist being told to override everything you know about child development to chase a test score. We have the knowledge. Tonight is about reclaiming the freedom to use it. Welcome back to my live series. I'm so glad you're joining us today. I'm Dr. Denisha Jones. I'm a scholar activist, a teacher educator, a true play advocate, and creator of the community Free to Teach equals Liberated to Learn. We are in week 5 of Embracing ECE Values as Resistance, our Wednesday night live series, where I dig into 10 early childhood education and care values that should be guiding your work with young children. And I use a 4-step framework to turn those values into active resistance. I want to offer a special welcome tonight because we are streaming on the Defending the Early Years Facebook page tonight. Value is grounded in work I led at DEY, the Linking High Quality Child Development Advocacy Toolkit. So it's really fitting that we are here together in this space. So if you're joining us for the first time, this series is rooted in a special issue of the Global Education Review that I co-edited titled Navigating an Uncertain Future by Embracing Early Childhood and Education and Care Values. You can scan the blue QR code at the top of your screen to access the first issue. Each week, I take one of these values and unpack it and walk through the 4-step framework together. Name it, audit it, frame it, advocate for it. If you missed last week's discussion on play, the leading activity of development with the amazing Kim Adams, scan the red QR code to find it on my YouTube page. All right, so tonight's value is aligning early childhood education practices and policies with research that supports healthy child development. Let me start with the good news, because there is good news. Our knowledge of how to support children's optimal growth and development has never been stronger. Advances in developmental theory, decades of research in neuroscience, and a deeper understanding of the relationship between nature and nurture have given us a clear blueprint for what young children need to thrive. We know, not believe, we know that children are naturally curious, that they learn through active hands-on experiences, that they learn through child-led free play, that they need agency over their learning, ample time to move their bodies and use their voices, caring relationships with adults, time outdoors, and the space to struggle, fail, and try again. This is not my opinion. This is the consensus of the field. That is what the research says. So here's the part that should make us angry. What we know about child development is not being used to guide the policies, curricular choices, and mandated practices that land in your classroom. Driven by the panic of children being left behind and learning loss, states are pushing heavy emphasis on academic rigor into the lives of 3 and 4-year-olds and calling it evidence-based. Let me tell you what the actual evidence says. And I'm a researcher, right? So I understand the love for research, but we have to be careful about some of this stuff. Have you heard of the Tennessee pre-K study? It was the first large randomized control study of a state pre-K program. And the findings stunned many people. The academic gains children made who went to the state-funded preschool, which was academically focused, faded after kindergarten. And by 3rd and 6th grade, the children who attended the state-funded preschool with an academic focus were doing worse academically and behaviorally than the children who did not attend. One of the lead researchers, Dale Farron, described what she called an iceberg model of early development. The skills that are easy to measure, naming letters, counting, the constrained skills that every readiness assessment loves, those are just the tip of the iceberg, the part floating above the surface. Beneath the surface are the deeper competencies that actually predict whether a child will thrive. Curiosity, a broad vocabulary, persistence, attentiveness, self-regulation, and a love of learning. And here is the heart of it. A 4-year-old who can recite letters and numbers doesn't mean that they've acquired the foundational skills needed to learn deeper academic content. Much of what children most need is not built in scripted academic classrooms or by memorizing. In fact, it is threatened when we restrict children's bodies and limit their minds in the name of rigor. So when someone hands you a research-based program that contradicts everything that this iceberg model shows, you're allowed to ask, well, whose research? Research that measures what is easy or research that honors what matters? What does it look like to honor this value of aligning our practice to research? It looks like grounding every decision, whether it's about the schedule or the environment or our interactions, and what we actually know about how children develop. It looks like protecting time for child-led free play because the science is unambiguous that play is how young children build the foundation for everything else. It looks like making the learning in play, in movement, in exploration, and in relationships visible so you can name it in the language the system claims to care about. What does it look like when we violate this value? It looks like forcing children to sit still for long stretches of time, forcing them to be quiet and suppress their questions, rushing them through one teacher-directed activity after another, making children earn their agency, restricting time outdoors and time for play, holding children to unrealistic expectations, and handing the early years over to standardized test preparation. We know these practices do not support development. We have known for a long time. The crisis is not a knowledge gap. It is a courage gap. And that is exactly what this value and this framework are built to close. I want to pause here and give you a chance to reflect. 2 questions are going to appear on the screen, and I will try and add them to the comments. So first, what is one thing you know about how children develop that your setting makes hard to honor? And where have you seen the words research-based or evidence-based used to justify a practice that contradicts what you know, right? While you reflect, I want to speak to those feelings that you might be having. Some of you might be having a knot in your stomach, and I want to address that. But here, let me put these questions in the comments for you, so that hopefully you'll see them pop up in a minute. There we go. Awesome. And let's get the other one up here for you. Okay, which is the one that I did first? We'll see. So the comments are interactive, and I can see. All right, I already did that one. So let's go back to the other comment. You can add your comments if you're watching live, and I will totally see them pop up. Okay, here's the other one. There we go. All right, so I'm going to put that in there for you, and you'll have time. If you're watching this later on YouTube, you can still respond to the comments and post a comment, and I will go back and see it and respond to you as well. All right, so I got those shared with you. So some of you, this might be, this value hits a particular nerve, right? You went into this field knowing things. You were trained in child development. You know what young children need. And then you walked into a system that asks you every single day to do the opposite of what you know, to deliver the scripted lesson, to run the assessment, to cut the play, to meet the standard. Being required to do something that you know is not in the best interest of children's optimal whole child development has a name. In my research with Dr. Breon Kramer and Dr. Clint Broadbent at Southern Utah University, we refer to it as moral injury. And I want to be very clear with you. That gap is not evidence that you are failing. It is evidence that the system is overriding your professional knowledge. Seeing that injury clearly and naming it is not shameful. It's the first step toward repair, because it confirms that what you know is still intact, even when your practice has been constrained. So tonight is not about guilt, and it's not about blame. It's about reclaiming the authority of what you already know. So I'm going to pause for a second and check the comments and see if anyone has anything to add there. And again, you can do it now, you can do it later. I just want this to be interactive so it doesn't feel like a lecture. All right. Comments look good. I will keep checking those and come back to that. Yeah, if there's more. All right. So now let's apply the 4-part framework to this value. The first step is to name your value. What do you believe about the relationship between research and practice? Here is what I believe. High quality, early childhood education and care must be built on the science of child development. We have a blueprint for how children grow and learn, and that blueprint, not test score panic, not market trends, not political pressure, should drive every policy, every curriculum, and every practice in the early years. When we let anything else drive our decisions, we are not being rigorous. We are being reckless with children's development. Step 2 is to conduct an alignment audit. What policies prohibit you from enacting this value? What behaviors show you are out of alignment? What is an early indicator or warning sign that you're drifting? The policies: scripted, academically focused curricula for 3 and 4-year-olds, standardized assessment for children who are far too young for them, mandates that measure children against standards never designed with their development in mind, the behaviors: forcing children to sit still and stay quiet, rushing them through teacher-directed activities, restricting play and outdoor time, and spending the year preparing for tests and other curriculum learning in the next grade. And the early warning sign, the one I want you to watch for, is the moment you hear yourself say, I know this isn't how children learn, but the curriculum requires it. Or the moment research-based gets used to justify something that contradicts what you know in your bones, that is the signal. Pause and ask, whose research am I being handed? And does it honor what we actually know about child development? Third, frame the message. Why does this value matter? This is your elevator speech. Here's mine. We know more about child development than ever before. And what we know is not driving what we do. The Tennessee pre-K study showed us that academically focused early years preschools produced gains that faded, and children who ended up worse off, academically and behaviorally, years later. Del Farron's iceberg model reminds us that the easy to measure skills are just the tip. The competencies that actually matter, the foundation for deeper academic learning, those are built up through play, through hands-on engagement, through relationships, through movement and exploration, not through academic learning and drills. So when I align my research, my practice with research that supports healthy development, I'm not lowering the bar, I'm raising it. I am protecting the foundation of which everything else is built. And it feels like integrity, like teaching from what I know is true instead of teaching against it. And that feeling is your data. When your practice matches your knowledge, you are in alignment. When you are forced to teach against what you know, something has been violated. Trust that signal. And finally, the fourth step is to advocate for your value. How can you advocate for this value in your personal and professional life? In the DEY toolkit, we named 5 actions for early childhood educators can take. So here's what advocacy looks like for this value. 1, identify the policies, practices, and curricula in your setting that are not based on child development. Name them. 2, document how those mandates interfere with optimal child development. And there's a really good research article that's a resource by DEY that was authored by Diane Levin and Judith Van Horn on a study they did with early childhood teachers who were talking about how the policies and mandates for low-income children were actually harming their development. I cite that article all the time. I will make sure to add it in the comments in the link so that people can find it, but it's on our website under publications as well too. So here is where you want to document how these mandates interfere with optimal child development because you want to keep the receipts. 3, share your high quality practices and link them out loud to what we know about how children develop. Make the science visible. 4, inform parents about your approach so families understand what their children need and why. And 5, advocate for restoring the link between high quality early child education and child development. And here is the move that ties it all together. When you're told to do something you know is harmful, do not just resist the bad. Name the alternative grounded in child development science. That way you're not only refusing what hurts children, you are advocating for what helps them. That is resistance that builds. So tonight's value, aligning early childhood education practices and policies with research that supports child development, healthy child development. We're not waiting for more research. We have it, decades of it. The question has never been whether we know what children need. The question is whether we will have the courage to use what we know and to resist everything that asks us to ignore it. So when you're told to sit them down, quiet them, rush them, test them, use what you know, and resist. And every time you resist, offer the alternative grounded in child development. That is how we restore the link between what we know and what we do. All right, so if this conversation resonated with you, I want to invite you into our free community, Free to Teach equals Liberated to Learn, where we keep these conversations going every month, and you have access to reflective prompts, resources, and other educators who are doing this work alongside you. Just scan the green QR code on your screen, and you will be able to access the community. Now, here's a sneak peek of next week's discussion on Value 5. Up next in my Embracing Early Childhood Education and Care Values as Resistance Live series is Value 5, centering care as fundamental to fostering healthy development in the early years. Care is not soft, care is the foundation. Before children can learn, explore, take risks, or develop a sense of who they are, they need to feel safe, seen, and cared for. This is not sentimental, it is developmental science. Relationships are the architecture of early learning, and yet care is routinely devalued in our field. It is underpaid, underrecognized, and treated as the backdrop to the real work, as if nurturing a child's sense of security is less important than teaching them to read. It's not less important. It is the prerequisite. I center care in my research, in my scholarship, in my professional development, because I believe that environments where children are generally cared for produce children who are genuinely free to learn. Join me on Wednesday, June 10th at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight for a discussion on how to embrace this value and use it as a form of resistance. This live is starting 1 hour early so I can host a DEY book talk at 7. So I will see you next week at 6 p.m. All right, folks. So next week we're moving on to care. I might have a special guest. I haven't confirmed it, but I hope I do because you're going to love it. All right. So thank you for being here. Thank you for doing all that you do, the most important work of caring for and educating young children. You're needed. Keep going. And remember, free to teach equals liberated to learn. Thank you.